It's important to understand that your animals are capable of grazing 365 days a year.
Animals that become accustomed to prescribed grazing do change their behavior. They actually learn to eat new species of plants. Conventional grazing leaves you usually with a void of winter grass or stockpile winter feed, so you have to buy hay or produce hay or buy feed concentrates, and that's very expensive. With prescribed grazing management, you actually graze year-round.
Prescribed grazing may not immediately or permanently eliminate your need for winter hay, but it can greatly reduce the amount of forage you'll need to harvest and store.
The costs are just astronomical, and so you got to find ways to make money in this business and control grazing and increasing your forage base on the farm, on the ground is what I like to call it, instead of rolling it up and putting it in the shed.
In the past, farmers enjoyed cheap fertilizer and low costs for fuel and machinery, and so they relied on warm season grazing to feed their herds. Hay and supplemental feed were used to maintain livestock during the colder seasons. Periodic drought and overgrazing damaged many pastures that were created for cool season grazing. Warm season plants, which are better able to cope with drought, generally outcompete perennial cool season plants. Producers were left with farms dominated by warm season pastures. Your goal is to increase the number of days per year when your animals are able to graze. The most effective tool to reach this goal is the wise management of cool season forage. Developing paddocks devoted to cool season forage greatly increases the productivity of your farm.
Whether it's drought or not, you want to manage the height of the grass, particularly in the summer. You don't want it to get below the minimum 3 to 4 inches. I think the most critical thing in drought, though, is the timing of your fertilizer. Even though we've been in a drought for 2 years, we have had spots of rain. And by watching the weather forecast and timing that nitrogen application just before it is absolutely critical. That was the only way I was able to survive the drought with no hay.
As you work toward cool season grazing, begin by identifying the cool season forages that are best suited for the growing conditions in your area. There's another tool you can use to extend your grazing season, especially for animals such as dry cows, which have lower nutritional needs. Rather than devote a lot of time, fuel, and fertilizer to growing and feeding hay, you may want to stockpile your forage.
We're in mid-October. This is the bottom on my farm. This is an example of stockpiling fescue. Here's my cross fence, my poly fence I moved. This grass is about 16, 18 inches tall. I put a little bit of chicken litter on it in late August.
This allows the forage to stockpile where it stands instead of in your barn. You can then turn your animals into the stockpiled pastures when the forage is needed. It's a good idea to strip graze your stockpiled pastures. This limits the damage your animals do by trampling and fouling the plants.
One of the selling points of this program is my ability to control graze because of the cross fencing. There's no doubt in my mind I've probably saved thousands of dollars in hay cost. I currently have grass, and when I think there's a lot of farmers around the area that don't.
The NRCS and your local Soil and Water Conservation District are ready to help you determine which conservation practices will benefit your livestock operation. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, helping people help the land.